Thomas Frank last night claimed that he was convinced he'd still be in charge of Tottenham's next match against Arsenal. And in his final Spurs press conference, sacked Frank also vowed that he was 1000% sure that he was the right man for the job. Sign up for the football newsletter. Thank you. Thomas Frank performed one final pitchside interview with Ben HainesCredit, X. Spurs official. Frank, 52, was sacked having won just 13 of 38 games in charge of SpursCredit, Reuters. Frank, 52, was axed this morning following last night's 2-1 home defeat to Newcastle. The result saw Tottenham fall to 16th in the Premier League table, just 5 points above the relegation zone. During the match and upon the final whistle, Frank was once again mercilessly booed by frustrated supporters, many of whom had paid more than £90 for their tickets. Asked if he would still be in charge for the visit of Arsenal to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on February 22, Frank awkwardly said, "Yeah, I'm convinced I will be." Read more in football. I understand the question and I understand it's easy to point on me, but I also think it's never only the head coach or the ownership or the directors or the players or the staff. It's everyone. If you do something right, you build something that can last. Of course, we are not in a top position now. Everyone knows, directors, ownership, myself, what position we are in, what we need to improve and what we need to do better. That is what we are working very hard on. During the second half, large sections of the ground sang, "You're getting sacked in the morning," towards their under-fire manager. Most read in football. Frank's sacking comes as Spurs release damning 108-word statement announcing their decision. Frank is the worst permanent Big Six manager in the history of the Premier League. Spurs have wasted a fortune on Frank, having paid millions to recruit him last year. There are 7 potential candidates who could replace Frank in the dugout. One manager is a clear favorite according to the bookies. Best online casinos. Top sites in the UK. Spurs were beaten 2-1 by Newcastle on home soil last night. Credit. Getty. Frank endured one final torrid evening at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium prior to his dismissal. Credit. Getty. Quizzed about the fans' reaction to him, Frank brought up the club's extensive injury list. Neither Dejan Kulusevski nor James Maddison played a single minute under Frank, while 9 other players were also unavailable for last night's match, including suspended skipper Christian Romero. Frank added, "I understand the fans' frustration. We are in a position we don't want to be in and we are working very hard day and night to change. I also think it is a situation now the club has been in, it's fair to say, for almost 2 years and at the end of last season as well. Clearly a pattern that we struggle to manage Europe and the Premier League. It's something me, the team, the club, the players we need to learn to do even better physically and mentally to deal with that. Part of that of course is the 11 injuries or 10 plus a suspension plus another one today, which of course doesn't help in a situation like that. Then we face a Newcastle team which is struggling a little bit lately. Look at what they put out on the pitch, compared to what they have done in the last 3 years. I think it's fair to say it's quite different to us. I think Newcastle were more on top first half. We came back in it very well. Then I think it was a little bit symbolic of our season that we had a transition going one way, then we misplaced a pass and defended badly for the 2-1 goal. Asked if he still believed he was the right man for the job, Frank vowed, 1000% sure. I am also 1000% sure that I never expected us to be in a situation like this with 11 or 12 injuries on the back end of this and what we've been facing, but I know when you need to build something and need to get through things, you need to show unbelievable strong resilience. I think it is fair to say there are a few before me up here, not only for Tottenham but in many other clubs that have lost their head many times, and I think you need to have a calm head, carry on, keep fighting and keep doing the right thing. Make sure we stick together because we can only do this if we stick together. That is the board, that is the leaders, that is the players, that is the staff, that is me, and that is the fans. We only get through this together. Who should be the next manager? Here is Sunsport reporter Tom Barkley's view. So the miserable Thomas Frank era is over. The question is now, where do Tottenham turn next? Roberto De Zerbi, who's just left Marseille, is the bookies' favorite, but would he be a good fit for Spurs? He's a combustible character. We'll have to wait and see. What's most likely at this point is probably an interim manager until the end of the season. Ryan Mason's available, having done it before and also having left West Brom earlier this season. John Heitinga obviously was brought in as Thomas Frank's assistant not that long ago. He has experience as a first-team coach at Ajax, but the man that I think they need to turn to if they can make it happen, it's the one that all the fans want, is Mauricio Pochettino. It's the one that Pochettino wants to happen. Obviously, that's going to be very difficult. He's the USA manager. We're just about to have a World Cup in the USA. But can there be some sort of deal? Pochettino only the other day did an interview with a podcast where he talked up his love of Spurs. It feels like this itch that needs to be scratched from Tottenham's point of view. Over the last few years, fans have been wanting him to come back. They were even chanting his name in what turned out to be Frank's final game against Newcastle. And he feels like the only person who can unify a really fractured club and fanbase at the moment. The distance between the fans and the club itself is so far apart, despite them winning the Europa League not that long ago. And a big part of that is the problem with the Thomas Frank appointment, how it all played out. Fans just weren't happy with it at all. It's a big call now for the hierarchy to make the right decision. And I think in Pochettino, he is arguably one of the only managers out there that will be given the time by the fans to make mistakes, because it feels like a big rebuilding job, because of all the goodwill he had from his first spell in charge. So, Spurs, they need to push the boat out, find a way of getting Pochettino in, whether it be now or in the summer. Frank also performed one final pitchside interview with Spurs play presenter Ben Haines. The video clip was the final thing posted to Spurs' social media accounts prior to Frank's dismissal. Asked how he would find solutions, Prior to the North London derby, Frank said, "I think in football it's a lot of mental. Of course it's not an easy spell we're in any way. The players need to refresh their minds to make sure that they can go again and be positive and confident we can keep going. So that's refreshing. And then we need to bottle together a team and work very hard on different aspects." Recommended stories. Frank won just 13 of his 38 matches in charge of Spurs. The former Brentford boss is now entitled to some handsome compensation after being relieved of his duties. Comments.